we've talked about this before, but the global minimum tax rate for corporations has been agreed upon by about 130 nations. So there is no specific number that has been set, though we know in America that Joe Biden has pushed for 15%. And out of all the countries that agreed, they represent about 90% of global GDP. So a sizable part of the global market is agreeing to a global minimum tax rate. Not a specific number yet, but the talks are moving forward. Um, the This presents both a framework to eliminate digital services taxes, which was very largely aimed at American tech companies that were doing business in foreign countries, as well as the main purpose, which is to create and stop this incentive for people to try to find new tax havens and move their businesses around from country to country and go offshore and try to find business somewhere else. It kind of makes all the companies, no matter where you go, pay a minimum tax rate. So effectively, everyone's paying their fair share, and it also kind of stops people from hunting down those new places to go. So they stay put in their countries. They feel more secure in their country because they know that wherever they go, there's going to be a minimum tax rate no matter what. Not going to be able to find somewhere there's like very little tax. So we'll see how that plays out. But the major finance leaders and central bankers are expected to meet later this month to discuss more details in terms of how all of this has been working out. And this is really all is a very key point in Joe Biden's policy for the foreign policy for the middle class, which the idea, I guess, is to kind of keep companies from leaving the United States or doing business in other places or headquartering themselves in other places so that it keeps them here and so they pay more taxes. Um, but I don't really know if that's going to work the same way that he thinks it does, because if he wants 15% tax, we're already at 21%, which was shot down from 35%. So I don't really know how that works and how that benefits the middle class. I think we have a lot of other policy issues, but it definitely sounds nice. So it's how he's going to sell it. But the there are a few holdouts, right? And a few notable holdouts here: Ireland, Hungary, Estonia, Nigeria, Kenya, Peru, and Sri Lanka. So these are countries that are holding out. And by holding out, I mean that they're not really for the minimum tax rate, and they're willing to discuss and try to negotiate for a level they think is fair, because there are a lot of countries, especially these specific ones in general, that use their low tax rate as a tool to attract foreign investment, where they feel that by setting a minimum tax rate globally, it will hurt their ability to say, hey, look, we have lower taxes here. You should bring your investments over here, right? It's a tool they use to bring in capital. So definitely some more conversations to be had, but I imagine that we will be seeing more about this in the next year or so. A lot of treaties have to be ratified. A lot of things have to be signed. It's going to be definitely a long process before all this said and done. But you're definitely looking at a different, I think, different chapter in finance now, where we're looking at all companies and holding everyone accountable, and we'll see how that really works out. Because in general, I find that most tax efforts, the 15% minimum tax doesn't help anyone in the United States, because our companies already pay nothing. I mean, 20% in taxes is a very low amount. We've had 35% since before the 2000s. So we'll see how that goes. We'll see how this deals out. I imagine it's going to take a while. Lots of meetings, lots of discussions, but we'll be bringing up more points on this as more relevant stuff occurs. But this was just a big update, kind of, because we talked about it before, so I just want to keep everyone updated. The news article came out today saying 130 nations are on board, so talks are moving forward. Things are getting a little more serious in regards to this minimum global tax, or global minimum tax, GMT as it's called. Yeah, and one of the main things is that this targets the new age of technology, right? The older tax, now that we have businesses that can do business all over the world and online and using data, it's a different world. So you're seeing a new chapter in finance of addressing now the new type of company that exists, not just the traditional companies that existed before.
Well, hopefully, hopefully the little guys don't get taxed as much as the big guys need to be taxed. But
Yeah, honestly, it should be a bell curve. It should be the companies that make more money should be taxed more, or um, the little guys should just be taxed less. It should be an even playing field, as what I'm thinking of, but more of a bell
But
curve
not a
shape.
not a not a bell curve, because a bell curve would mean the most profitable companies pay just as much as the least profitable companies, and everybody in the middle pays the most at the median,
Well, I'm saying that everyone should pay a certain amount according to their,
like income taxes.
yeah, to
Yeah,
income
I,
taxes.
I, I agree with that. I think
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be smart. If your company makes stupid amounts of money, you shouldn't pay the same tax rate as a mom and pop shop or something equivalent. I mean, I think that having a tax rate of 20% is like there are people who pay more in taxes, individuals who pay more taxes than entire companies do. I, I'm not an economist, so there's clearly a lot of stuff I don't understand there, but based on the numbers,
And the thing is that most of these large corporations are able to hide their money. Smaller businesses aren't able to have the utilization of being able to hide their money off to offshore accounts and everything like that. So there's a lot more to take into account when it comes to large corporations.
right. But I think more importantly for big corporations, because individual wealthy investors usually use those tax havens, companies don't as much. And this is supposed to kind of help fight that and kind of keep people like you're just going to stay where you are because everyone's going to tax you these rates. But I think with big companies, the biggest fear is not necessarily hiding their money, it's how they can use their money. Companies can buy lobbyists. So not only do they pay lower taxes, but then they can pay to have people literally influence legislation and fight for laws that are more favorable to not tax them or not make them pay as much or give them more leeway and wiggle room within their industries that consumers have no way of touching. Not to mention the ability to have very wealthy people within their companies finance political campaigns. So they can mobilize their capital and almost weaponize it in a way that gives them much more power to help affect their business in different silos and different sectors and industries than consumers who really just, you make X amount of money, you pay this much tax. If you write things off and go to charity, you can make deductions and then just a math equation. Companies have a lot more, more aggressive tactics they can do
Yeah,
to
they
make
lobby
their
more.
operating,
It's
they can
it's
make their
what it
operations
is.
easier to do.
They go up to bat more than the little guy. The little guy doesn't even have time to even know what lobbying is. The big guys are just like, well, let me get some tax breaks. Let me start lobbying for some stuff,
Right.
and that's how they get larger tax breaks. So
Exactly. So definitely interesting. We'll be covering this as it goes on, but I definitely think corporations should pay more in taxes because, you know, they say it hurts the ability to pay the lower workers, but the executives get paid just fine. And if you think about the executives are equally as important as the employees because with brains without operation is nothing, and operation without brains is nothing. So if they're both equally important components, why does one get paid 20, 30, 40 times in magnitude greater than the people who actually make the business do the things that it's supposed to do? I'm not saying that executives should be paid a lot. I'm saying that we can definitely rescale our understanding of pay scales, and it would offer more benefits to workers that would make them feel more at home and not like they slave away 40, 50 hours a week and executives go out to nice dinners and they make the big plays, but they don't have to physically break their back to work so hard. They live a different style of life. So not to mention their compensation packages and options, and you hit this much in revenue, we'll give you tens and twenties of millions of dollars worth of options contracts. Like, okay. So.
oh yeah, I knew executives that would be penny pinchers just to say they've saved more money this quarter, and
Right.
they would do anything and everything, including cutting like people's wages and cutting off workers and everything like that, in order to just say we saved this much money
I hit
through
my
my
target.
regime.
Give
Yeah,
give me give
exactly.
me my reward for doing a
Exactly.
good
Give me
job.
my bonus. Give me my bonus because I did better than all the other sectors of this company. So, incentivization for these corporations needs to be fixed ethically, morally, and definitely the tax overall field just needs to be more fair.
Yeah, so we'll definitely be coming back to this. Taxes are going to be a talking point for the rest of humanity as we run out of money to pay for the things that we borrowed for in the future.
Absolutely.